It was an ordinary morning on Earth when the news hit, and no one could have predicted what was about to unfold. The world's major news networks were broadcasting as usual, covering everything from the weather to the latest political updates. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The usual programs went black. Static filled the screens for a few moments, and then a new image appeared, a broadcast from a distant corner of the galaxy. The message was simple, but it carried with it an overwhelming weight. An alien species, known as the Vorka, declared war on humanity. Their leader, a towering figure with a voice that echoed through every broadcast, made their intentions clear. The Vorka had been watching Earth for years, studying humanity's progress. Now they felt it was time for humans to be brought to their knees. "Your primitive world has long been overlooked," the leader said, his eyes glowing with an eerie light. "You have no place in the galaxy, and your time has come to an end. The Vorka have arrived to claim what is ours." The broadcast sent shockwaves through Earth. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. Who were the Vorka? Why were they declaring war on humanity? Hadn't Earth, with all its history of wars, somehow escaped the attention of powerful alien species for so long? What could have possibly triggered this sudden aggression? The world's leaders scrambled for answers. Political leaders, military commanders, and scientists rushed into emergency meetings. People in the streets whispered in fear. At first, many thought it was some kind of joke or misunderstanding. But the weight of the message, combined with the strange technological signature behind the broadcast, made it clear. This was real. The Vorka were no joke, known across the galaxy for their advanced weaponry and their unyielding nature. The Vorka had taken over many planets, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Their fleet was enormous, and their soldiers were terrifying, built to survive in the harshest environments. Humanity, with its relatively young and technologically limited state, seemed like an easy target for them. But the Vorka's arrogance was evident. The leader had smiled darkly as he spoke, fully convinced that Earth would fall without much effort. The message had a chilling conclusion. "Your planet will be ours. Prepare for your extinction." As soon as the broadcast ended, governments around the world went into full alert. The United Nations held an emergency session. Military forces in every country began mobilizing, preparing for what they feared would be a devastating attack. Earth had no idea what was coming, but they knew it wasn't going to be good. Humanity's fragile peace seemed to be crumbling in an instant. Meanwhile, across the globe, people began to process the unimaginable. In cities, fear spread quickly. Some were in shock, unable to comprehend how an alien species could be targeting Earth. Others were angry, ready to fight back. Humanity's strength had always been in its ability to unite in times of crisis, and now was no different. Soldiers, engineers, scientists, and civilians all began to ask the same question: how could they possibly fight back? Earth's military leaders, who had spent decades preparing for conflicts with other nations, had never anticipated the need to defend against a galactic threat. The weapons they had were powerful, but were they enough? Could humanity's outdated military technology stand up against an alien species with advanced spacecraft, weapons, and strategies? At the same time, scientists and tech experts from all over the world started to gather. They had seen and heard rumors of advanced human technology hidden deep within Earth's vaults. For centuries, Earth's governments had kept certain secrets, advanced scientific achievements, locked away for fear of their misuse. Could this technology be humanity's last hope? Would it be enough to defend Earth from the overwhelming power of the Vorka? Though the situation seemed hopeless, one thing became clear: humanity would not go down without a fight. The people of Earth had always been known for their resourcefulness and resilience. This would not be the first time humans had faced impossible odds. The moment the Vorka declared war, humanity found a new sense of purpose. They would do everything they could to survive. On that same day, leaders from around the world began to meet, uniting in ways they never had before. Earth's response was no longer a question of if, but when. The fight for survival had begun. But even though humanity was shaken, they knew one thing. The Vorka had underestimated them. General Lee turned to Ilara, a sense of urgency in his eyes. "How much time do we have?" "At most, 2 hours," Ilara replied. "Once they activate the weapon, we'll have only minutes to deploy the shield before it's too late. We need a small, fast team to get close to the Vorka's weapon and deliver the shield before it's too late." Lee nodded, already beginning to form a plan. "I'll send Commander Olivia Clark. She's led the most successful strike missions so far. She's our best chance." In the middle of the chaos, Commander Olivia Clark was preparing for yet another risky mission. Her team was already in position, ready for deployment. She knew this mission would be unlike any they had ever faced. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. "We're all in this together," Olivia said, rallying her team. "This isn't just about us. It's about our families, our homes, and our future. We have one chance to save Earth, and I know we can do it." Her team nodded, their faces filled with determination. Despite the odds, they were ready to do whatever it took to protect their planet. The mission was set. Commander Clark and her team launched their ships, speeding through space toward the Vorka's weapon. The tension was high as they neared the enemy fleet. The Vorka's warships loomed ahead, massive and menacing, but Clark's team was focused on their objective. They couldn't afford to make a mistake. The shield was humanity's last hope, and they had to get it close enough to the Vorka's weapon to be effective. As they approached, the team's ships weaved and darted through enemy fire, narrowly avoiding blasts from the Vorka's massive weapons. The ship's shields absorbed the damage, but it was clear that they couldn't take much more. "We're almost there," Olivia shouted over the comms. "Prepare for the drop." As they neared the weapon's launch site, Olivia's team made a daring move, using the cover of nearby asteroids to hide their approach. It was a risky maneuver, but it worked. They got close enough to the weapon to deploy the shield. The moment of truth had arrived. As Olivia's team deployed the shield, the Vorka activated their weapon. A massive pulse of energy shot toward Earth, but the shield absorbed the impact. The shockwave from the blast sent ripples through space, but the shield held firm, preventing the energy from reaching Earth's surface. "We did it." Olivia's voice cracked with relief, but she knew the job wasn't finished yet. The Vorka would not stop. The weapon had been neutralized, but the battle was far from over. The Vorka fleet, now realizing their weapon had failed, turned their attention to Olivia's team. The aliens were angry and desperate, and they would stop at nothing to destroy humanity. "We've got incoming," one of Olivia's team members shouted. The Vorka ships were closing in, and the battle was about to escalate. "Hold tight, everyone," Olivia ordered. "We've come this far. We're not backing down now." The humans fought fiercely, using every bit of their training and the technology from the vault to hold off the Vorka. Their ships darted and weaved in space, firing back with precision, taking down alien warships one by one. But the Vorka were relentless, sending more ships to engage the humans. Back on Earth, the people watched anxiously as the battle continued. The news spread quickly. The Vorka's weapon had been neutralized, but the war was far from over. Humanity had fought back with everything they had, but there was still a long road ahead. Dr. Ilara Wright stood in the command center, watching as humanity's military gave their all to protect Earth. There was no turning back now. The future of the planet depended on the courage and strength of every single person fighting in this war. "We've come this far," Ilara whispered. "We can't stop now." The war was entering its most dangerous phase, and Earth's survival hung in the balance. The final battle was approaching, and only one side would emerge victorious. Would humanity's ingenuity and resolve be enough to defeat the Vorka, or would the aliens finally succeed in their mission to conquer Earth? Only time would tell. The war was now entering its most critical phase. With the Vorka fleet shattered and their weapon neutralized, Earth had gained a precious moment of respite. But the Vorka, though wounded, were far from defeated. Their determination was now matched only by their fury. Earth's forces had bought some time, but it was only a matter of time before the Vorka came up with a new plan to finish what they had started. Back on Earth, Alara Wright and General Marcus Lee were standing in the command center, watching the latest updates from space. The battle was far from over, and they both knew that whatever came next, it would require every bit of humanity's resilience to survive. "We've neutralized their weapon, but we've only delayed them," Alara said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "The Vorka will regroup, and they'll strike harder this time. We need a permanent solution." Marcus nodded grimly. "I know, but we don't have much time. The Vorka are already reassembling their fleet. Their next attack will be even more coordinated, and they'll come at us from every angle. We need a plan that can stop them once and for all." Alara thought for a moment, her mind racing. The Vault's technology had given Earth an edge, but the Vorka were relentless. Earth needed something more, something to give them the upper hand in the coming storm. "I've been studying the data we recovered from the Vault," Alara said finally. "There's a power source, something much more advanced than anything we've seen before. If we can harness it, we might be able to create a weapon capable of disabling the Vorka fleet in one fell swoop." Marcus looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "How long will it take to make it operational?" "Not long," Alara replied. "We've got the technology, but we'll need to send a team to the Vault site to make the necessary adjustments. It's risky, but if we succeed, it could give us the advantage we need." The plan was set. A small, specialized team would be sent to the Vault to access and activate the power source. The risk was high, but the potential reward was even greater. The team would have to fight their way through enemy lines, evade the Vorka's remaining forces, and activate the weapon before it was too late. Commander Olivia Clark, still leading the charge in space, was the first to hear about the new mission. She had been fighting in the front lines for weeks, but this new plan offered a glimmer of hope. The idea of using the Vault's power to turn the tide of the war was something she had been hoping for. She knew, however, that this mission would be just as dangerous as the last. "I'll lead the team," Olivia said, determination in her voice. "We've done the impossible before. We can do it again." Alara smiled, though she knew the risks were monumental. "I believe in you, Olivia. We all do." The team, a mix of the best soldiers and engineers, prepared to head for the Vault. They would face unimaginable dangers along the way, but Earth had no choice. The Vorka had left them with no other options. The team's success or failure would determine whether humanity could survive or be crushed beneath the alien war machine. As the team boarded their ships, Earth watched. The entire planet was holding its breath. The war had been hard, and many had already lost loved ones. The streets were filled with people fighting to protect their homes, doing everything they could to contribute to the war effort. The world was united now, more than ever before. Commander Clark's ship soared into the depths of space once again, heading toward the Vault's location. It was a journey into the unknown, but Olivia and her team had been prepared for the impossible. They were going to take the fight to the heart of the storm. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Vorka fleet, General Jurek was busy preparing for his final assault. His warriors had suffered losses, but they were relentless. They had seen humanity's strength and resilience firsthand, but that only fueled their desire for domination. Jurek was determined to crush Earth once and for all. "We will not fail," Jurek growled as he stood in front of his officers. "We will show them the might of the Vorka. Their time is over." The Vorka fleet began to mobilize, their ships moving into position, preparing for the most powerful assault humanity had ever faced. Jurek was confident that this would be the end of the human resistance. But as they made their way toward Earth, something began to shift. Jurek could sense it. The humans were not backing down. They were preparing for something big. Olivia and her team continued their journey, navigating through the vast expanse of space. The tension was thick, but the team remained focused. They had to reach the Vault and activate the power source before the Vorka could launch their final attack. Every moment counted, and the weight of Earth's future rested on their shoulders. "We're almost there," Olivia said, her voice steady as she looked at the stars ahead. "Get ready, everyone. This is it." As the first alien warships entered Earth's atmosphere, they were met with a surprising defense. The Vorka had expected Earth's forces to be scattered and disorganized, but what they encountered was something entirely different. The human fleet, now armed with Vault technology, fought back with precision and power. The Vorka's massive ships, designed to intimidate and crush weaker species, were stunned when their weapons had little effect on Earth's new shields. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Earth's ships, though smaller and fewer in number, fought with the determination and ingenuity that had defined humanity for centuries. They used the alien technology in ways the Vorka never imagined. Human ships darted through space, expertly evading enemy fire while launching devastating counterattacks. The Vorka, overconfident and arrogant, were caught completely off guard. While the Vorka tried to regroup and plan their next move, humanity had shown them one undeniable truth. Earth was not as helpless as they had thought. The war had only just begun, but already the balance of power had shifted. Humanity's survival was no longer a question of if. It was a matter of how far they were willing to go to protect their home. Ilara watched from the command center, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. The Vault's secrets had given Earth a fighting chance, but she knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had to stay united, stay strong, and continue to adapt. The Vorka had made a mistake. They had underestimated Earth, and that, Ilara thought, would be their downfall. The battle for Earth had begun, and the Vorka were not prepared for what they faced. The massive alien fleet, which had once seemed unstoppable, was now under attack by a force they hadn't anticipated. Humanity, Earth's military, now armed with advanced technologies from the mysterious Vault, was holding its own against the Vorka's superior firepower. In the vastness of space, human ships moved with surprising agility, darting through the stars like skilled predators. The Vorka, with their massive and imposing warships, found themselves struggling to land a hit. Their weapons, once capable of tearing through entire fleets, were barely making a dent in Earth's new shields, and when the humans struck back, they did so with precision and power that rattled the Vorka to their core. On Earth, the world's military leaders were watching in disbelief. The attacks from the Vorka had been fierce, but humanity was holding its ground. The Vault's technology had turned the tide in humanity's favor, but they couldn't afford to relax just yet. The Vorka were relentless, and they had only just begun to deploy their most devastating weapons. Dr. Ilara Wright, who had led the effort to unlock the Vault's secrets, continued to monitor the battle from Earth's command center. She had spent days working with the military, guiding them on how to use the advanced technology they now controlled. But even she knew that Earth could not rely on these new weapons alone. The Vorka had an army that far outnumbered humanity's forces, and their warships were still formidable. "We need to find a way to disrupt their fleet's command structure," Ilara said to General Marcus Lee, the head of Earth's United Military Forces. "If we can take out their communication ships, we can cut them off from one another. That might be our best chance to weaken their forces." General Lee nodded. "We'll need a small, fast strike team. If we can get close enough to one of their command ships, we might have a chance. But this is risky. If they catch on to what we're doing, they'll retaliate." Ilara's heart raced. The plan was dangerous, but it was the best option they had. The Vorka were incredibly advanced, but they were not invincible. They had weaknesses, and humanity needed to find them quickly. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the situation was growing more tense. The Vorka were regrouping, sending in more ships to replace the ones they had lost. Their relentless assault showed no signs of stopping, but humanity's forces were not backing down. Human soldiers aboard the ships were more determined than ever. They fought not just for victory, but for survival, for their homes, their families, and their future. In space, the human strike team, led by Commander Olivia Clark, prepared to launch their daring mission. Olivia had been trained for this type of mission for years, but nothing could have prepared her for the scale of this battle. She had heard stories of alien wars, of vast battles fought between species beyond the stars, but now she was in the middle of one herself. As they neared the vault's location, their ship shook violently from enemy fire. The Vorka had discovered their approach, and now they had to fight their way through. Olivia's heart raced as the team engaged in another fierce battle, their ships dodging blasts from the Vorka's warships. But despite the overwhelming odds, Olivia and her team pressed on. They knew what was at stake. Earth's future depended on their success. With every passing second, the storm of battle raged on, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Would they succeed in activating the power source and turning the tide of the war? Or would the Vorka finally succeed in their conquest of Earth? Only time would tell. Earth's future hung by a thread. The Vorka had gathered their forces and were now closing in on the planet, ready to unleash their final, crushing assault. Their ships filled the skies, casting shadows over the Earth below. General Jurek's voice thundered across his fleet, urging his warriors to bring an end to humanity's defiance. The Vorka had underestimated humans before, and they would make sure it would never happen again. But deep within space, far from the Vorka's reach, a small team of human soldiers and engineers made their way to the vault. Commander Olivia Clark and her team had fought through wave after wave of Vorka ships, every moment spent dodging laser fire and battling through the void of space. They had seen their fair share of hardship, but this was different. This mission held the key to Earth's survival. The vault's power source could shift the balance of the war, but only if they could reach it in time. "Keep pushing, everyone. We're almost there," Olivia said, her voice steady, though the urgency in her words was clear. Her team nodded, knowing they had no choice but to succeed. The enemy was closing in, and the stakes had never been higher. As they approached the vault, the final wave of Vorka ships met them head-on. They had no choice but to engage in a furious battle for control of the vault. Olivia's ship fired rapidly, dodging blasts as her team worked quickly to keep the Vorka at bay. The vault loomed ahead, just within reach, but the enemy's onslaught was relentless. Inside the vault, Ilara Wright and her team worked as fast as they could, tapping into the advanced technology they had discovered earlier in the war. The power source was unlike anything they had ever seen, pulsing with a strange energy that hummed through the air. It was powerful, dangerous, and if used correctly, could turn the tide of the war in humanity's favor. Ilara stared at the power core, her heart racing. "We're almost there. One more minute, and we can activate it." Outside, the battle intensified. The Vorka were relentless, pressing forward with everything they had. But humanity wasn't backing down. Olivia's team had fought too hard, lost too much to let the Vorka win now. "Stay focused, everyone," Olivia shouted as she maneuvered her ship to avoid another deadly blast. The team was giving everything they had, their energy and resolve unbreakable. They would not let Earth fall. With a final push, Olivia and her team made it into position. The vault's entrance opened, and they quickly made their way inside. Ilara greeted them with a determined smile. "We've got the power source online," she said. "Now we need to activate it before the Vorka can stop us." The team worked together, activating the power core with a series of intricate commands. The room around them began to hum as the core powered up, sending waves of energy throughout the vault. Back in space, General Jurek's fleet was closing in on Earth. His fleet of warships prepared to unleash their full might, but just as they were about to strike, something unexpected happened. A burst of energy erupted from the vault, creating a massive shockwave that spread through space, destabilizing the Vorka ships. "What is this?" Jurek roared, his eyes wide with shock as his ship shook under the force of the power surge. The weapon Ilara and her team had activated was not just a weapon, it was a force capable of disrupting the Vorka's technology. The shockwave sent their ships into chaos, disabling their weapons and rendering them vulnerable. For the first time in the war, the tide was turning. Olivia and her team watched in awe as the energy surged outward, lighting up the sky. It was as if the universe itself was fighting back against the Vorka. "We did it," Olivia whispered, a wave of relief washing over her. She glanced at her team, who were all staring in disbelief at the power they had unleashed. The war had just started, but Earth would not go down without showing the galaxy just what humans were capable of. And little did the Vorka know, they were about to make a dangerous mistake by thinking Earth was an easy target. The battle for humanity's survival had only just begun, but one thing was certain: this would be a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. As the days passed after the Vorka's shocking declaration of war, Earth's governments worked at an intense pace, trying to prepare for the worst. The streets were filled with anxious faces, but no one knew exactly what was coming. The Vorka had made their intentions clear, and yet no one knew how Earth could possibly fight back. The Vorka's fleet, massive and powerful, loomed in space, watching Earth like predators circling their prey. Nations across the globe, from the United States to China, from Russia to Brazil, scrambled to organize their forces. Soldiers, Air Force pilots, and naval fleets mobilized, their training put to the test in a way they had never expected. But even as humanity's leaders gathered to discuss their strategies, there was a hidden, more urgent question on everyone's mind. Could humanity truly survive an attack from a species so advanced? In the midst of this chaos, something extraordinary happened. A small, quiet team of scientists and military strategists, working behind the scenes, had been quietly preparing for a day like this, when the world would need to turn to the one thing humanity had kept secret for generations. A vault, hidden deep beneath the Earth's surface, contained technology older than anything the world had ever seen. This technology was far beyond anything the public was aware of, and only a few individuals knew its true potential. For centuries, this vault had remained locked away. Built by a group of the world's most brilliant minds during a time when Earth was united under a single banner, the vault contained knowledge and tools that had been designed to defend the planet from threats just like the Vorka. But the vault had remained untouched, hidden from the world, as its creators feared that such power could fall into the wrong hands. Now that vault would be humanity's only hope. The team, led by a brilliant young scientist named Dr. Ilara Wright, was given the task of unlocking the vault and understanding the technology inside. Ilara, who had grown up with tales of the vault's potential, knew that this would be humanity's last chance. She had studied the old blueprints and spent years trying to understand the mysterious technology that had been left behind. Now, she and her team had to put it into action. As the world held its breath, Ilara's team worked day and night. They cracked the security codes, solved the puzzles that had kept the vault sealed for so long, and finally unlocked the doors. What they found inside was more incredible than any of them could have imagined. Advanced weaponry, energy shields, and propulsion systems that could rival even the most powerful space fleets in the galaxy. But the true marvel of the vault lay in its most remarkable discovery: a vast database of knowledge. It contained strategies, blueprints for building ships and weapons, and ideas for creating new technologies that could alter the balance of power in the galaxy. This was not just a simple defense mechanism. It was the key to humanity's survival and future. As Ilara and her team worked to understand and adapt the vault's technology, humanity's leaders began to take notice. At first, it seemed too good to be true. Could these ancient technologies really help them stand against an enemy so much more advanced? But as the scientists demonstrated the power of just one of the vault's devices, an energy shield capable of withstanding even the most powerful alien weapons, the world's leaders had no choice but to put their faith in this unexpected hope. Within weeks, Earth began to change. Old, outdated military ships were retrofitted with the vault's advanced technology. New fleets were created, each one armed with powerful weapons and shields that the Vorka could never have anticipated. The Earth's military, once seen as a weak and primitive force, now had the potential to fight back against the alien invaders. Even as the Earth's defenses were strengthened, the Vorka continued to move closer. Their massive fleet was now positioned near the edge of the solar system, and humanity knew the time to act was rapidly approaching. The Vorka had made their move. They were ready to invade. But they had no idea what humanity had been quietly preparing. One evening, as Ilara reviewed battle reports, she was called into a meeting with General Marcus Lee. The air was heavy with tension, and Ilara could tell from his expression that something had changed. "We've received intel from one of our reconnaissance ships," General Lee began. "The Vorka are preparing something. Something huge. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's unlike anything we've seen." Ilara's heart raced. The Vorka's advanced weaponry had already proven devastating. If they were preparing something even more powerful, Earth could be in serious danger. "We need to find a way to counter it," Ilara said firmly. "Is there anything we can do?" Lee nodded. "We've been working on it. We've increased our scans, and we're preparing to deploy the best of our fleet to intercept the threat. But we need time. Time that we might not have." As the days passed, the situation became more urgent. Earth's forces were stretched thin, defending against the Vorka's continued onslaught, while also working to prepare for whatever new weapon the aliens were developing. Ilara spent every waking moment studying the Vault's technology, hoping to find a solution, but the pressure was mounting. In space, the Vorka fleet began to assemble near the edge of the solar system, out of reach of Earth's most advanced weapons. From their vantage point, they had a clear view of the planet below. Earth was a small blue world, but it had proven itself to be far more resilient than the Vorka had expected. And now, the Vorka were preparing to deliver the final blow. "We will obliterate their defenses in one strike," General Jurek declared as he looked out across the fleet. His alien fleet, now reorganized and reinforced, was ready for the attack. He had devised a plan to launch an assault so powerful, so overwhelming, that Earth would have no chance of surviving. They had developed a weapon capable of tearing apart entire cities in seconds, and this would be the weapon to end the war in their favor. Back on Earth, the tension was palpable. People could feel that a major attack was coming, and they braced for the worst. The world's leaders were doing everything in their power to prepare for the oncoming assault, but there was no way to predict what the Vorka would throw at them next. The military, armed with the Vault's advanced technology, was working tirelessly to strengthen their defenses, but time was running out. Dr. Ilara Wright was exhausted, but her resolve remained strong. She had spent days in the command center, working alongside General Lee and other leaders to understand how Earth could survive the coming attack. She knew that the human spirit was powerful, that humanity had an ability to adapt, to fight back, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. She had seen it in the battlefield, in the eyes of soldiers, pilots, and civilians alike. But the Vorka were unlike any enemy humanity had ever faced. "I won't let them destroy us," Ilara whispered to herself as she watched the stars outside the command center's windows. The next battle would be the hardest humanity had ever faced. But Ilara knew one thing for certain. Earth wasn't going to give up without a fight. The countdown had begun. The war was far from over, and the true test of humanity's strength was still ahead. With the Vorka preparing their final attack, Earth's hope rested on one thing: the determination of its people to survive. As the days passed, the situation grew more critical. The Vorka fleet had assembled at the edge of the solar system, and their weapons, as feared, were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Earth's military was preparing for the worst, knowing that the next attack would likely be their final chance to survive. The countdown had begun. Dr. Ilara Wright stood at the command center, looking over the new information that had come in. The Vorka's weapon was massive, a device capable of releasing an energy wave that could devastate everything in its path. It could destroy entire cities in seconds, and the military was racing against time to find a way to stop it. "We don't have much time," General Marcus Lee said, his voice tense. "Their weapon is close to activation. If we don't stop it before it launches, Earth is finished." Ilara could feel the weight of the situation on her shoulders. She had worked tirelessly on unlocking the secrets of the Vault's technology, and humanity had made significant progress. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. The future of Earth rested on a single desperate plan that seemed almost impossible to pull off. "We still have one option," Ilara said, looking up from the screen. "We've been working on a new energy shield, one that could potentially absorb the energy from the Vorka's weapon. But we need to get it close enough to the weapon's blast radius. And that means we'll have to send in a team to deliver it." "This is it," Olivia said to her team as they prepared their ships. "We hit the Vorka's command ship hard and fast. We disable their communications and make our escape. It's a one-shot deal. Everyone ready?" Her team responded with a unanimous, "Yes, Mom." But there was a hint of fear in their voices. This mission was more dangerous than anything they had faced before, and if they failed, the consequences would be dire. The strike team launched from Earth's defensive line, moving quickly toward the Vorka fleet. Their small, fast ships zipped through space, evading the alien warships' attacks as they neared their target. The Vorka, still focused on the larger human fleet, did not realize the threat approaching until it was too late. Olivia's team reached the command ship and moved into position. They knew they had only one chance. If they could disable the ship's communication systems, they would sever the connection between the Vorka ships, causing confusion and chaos within their ranks. With one swift strike, the team unleashed a barrage of energy weapons on the command ship, targeting its communication hubs. Sparks flew from the ship's hull, and the lights inside flickered. The Vorka had no way of knowing exactly where the attack had come from, and before they could respond, the team made their escape. As the human strike team retreated, the Vorka's command structure began to break down. Their ships were now scattered and disorganized, unable to communicate with each other. For the first time in the battle, the Vorka seemed vulnerable. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. Humanity had dealt a significant blow to the Vorka. The alien fleet was in disarray, and Earth's military now had a chance to press the advantage. But Ilara knew the battle was far from over. The Vorka were not easily defeated, and they would undoubtedly regroup and retaliate. "We can't let up now," Ilara said as she watched the chaos unfold in space. "This is just the beginning. We've shown them what we can do, but we have to keep pushing." On the ground, people across Earth watched the battle unfold on their screens. The news reports showed humans fighting back against an enemy that had once seemed invincible. The fear that had gripped the planet was beginning to fade, replaced by a growing sense of hope. Humanity was standing strong. The war had only just begun, but Earth was no longer a helpless target. The Vorka had underestimated humanity's resolve, and they were about to find out just how dangerous humans could be. The tide of the battle had shifted. What started as a full-scale alien invasion had now become a war of survival, where humanity's quick thinking and newfound technologies had stunned the Vorka. But as Earth celebrated its first victories, the Vorka were far from defeated. They were regrouping, adjusting, and preparing for a new phase of their assault. On the bridge of the Vorka flagship, the alien commander, General Jurek, stood in front of a massive holographic display of the battlefield. His hands clenched into fists as he watched Earth's forces begin to push back. It was clear that the humans had surprised them, and the communications disruption caused by Earth's strike team had made things even worse. But Jurek, a seasoned warrior with years of experience, was not about to let this setback define the war. "We underestimated them," Jurek said, his voice deep and measured. "But that ends now. Prepare for full-scale retaliation. We will crush them." His officers nodded in agreement, knowing that the next wave of attacks had to be swift and overwhelming. The Vorka were known for their advanced technology, and now they would use it to their advantage. Jurek's fleet was already in the process of deploying their most advanced weapons, devices that could shatter entire planets, weapons capable of turning Earth's defenses to dust. While the Vorka prepared their counterattack, life on Earth was changing rapidly. Humanity, united by the fear of invasion and the hope of survival, had come together like never before. Countries that once had different interests were now working side by side. The war had forged new alliances and brought out the best in humanity's ingenuity. Ilara Wright, still working alongside Earth's military leaders, had been working tirelessly with her team to understand the full potential of the Vault's technology. They had unlocked many secrets, but there was still so much to learn. What they had discovered so far had been crucial, allowing Earth's military to adapt quickly and fight back. But Ilara knew that the Vorka would not go down so easily. The enemy had advanced technology, and it was only a matter of time before they struck back harder. But even with the Vorka fleet temporarily disabled, the war was far from over. Earth's forces quickly mobilized, launching their own counteroffensive. Fighter jets, ships, and ground forces surged forward, pushing the Vorka back with everything they had. General Marcus Lee watched the events unfold from Earth's command center, his eyes fixed on the screens. The battle was still raging, but for the first time, there was hope. The Vorka were no longer invincible. The power of humanity's ingenuity and resolve had struck a decisive blow. On the battlefield, the fight continued, but the Vorka knew they could not win. Their ships were no match for the advanced technology humanity now wielded. With each passing hour, the tide turned more in humanity's favor. The Vorka began to retreat, their forces scattering as Earth's fleet pushed forward. Back on the ground, people watched from their homes, holding their breath as the world held on to the hope that the war would soon be over. Families who had lost so much could finally see a glimmer of peace on the horizon. Humanity had faced an overwhelming foe and had fought back, not just with weapons, but with the spirit that had defined them from the very beginning. As the Vorka ships disappeared into the distance, defeated and broken, Olivia and her team stood together, looking out over the field of stars. They had done it. The storm had passed. The battle was over, and humanity had won. Earth's future was secure, but the war had shown them something more. An unbreakable strength, a resilience that no alien force could ever take away. The people of Earth had proven that, when united, they could overcome any challenge. This victory wasn't just about defeating the Vorka. It was about the promise of a new dawn for humanity, one built on courage, hope, and the unyielding will to survive. And so, as the sun rose over Earth once more, the people of the planet knew that their greatest strength was not just in their technology, but in their ability to rise together against any storm.